All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, football fans of all ages, I am Beast Mike, and you have now arrived on my train of thought. It's time to talk about Week 16 in the NFL season. We're getting real serious. Teams are actually starting to clinch playoff spots, and teams are starting to get eliminated and starting to prepare for the offseason en masse. The music's getting serious. The games are getting serious. Let's get to business and not waste any more time. We got a Game of the Year contender, and we knew we were going to get one. The main event came on first, and Seattle and Los Angeles Rams lived up to the hype. The Chargers are good. Relax, LA Charger fans, all three of you. Anyway, let's talk about this Rams game with Seattle. It was as good as advertised. And Seattle actually didn't have terrible rivalries uniforms for once, which is good. Did not like the highlighter greens. No one likes the highlighter greens. Anyway, this was a really fun game from start to finish. The Rams came out swinging. We saw it. Matt Stafford and company, Kyren Williams, and especially Puka Nacua, more on him in a sec, they came out swinging. Everything was looking good for Los Angeles early. And it was looking real bad since Kenneth Walker in the first half for Seattle. And then the second half starts, and then we get a lot of Puka Nacua. And Sam Darnold throwing in-ohs at untimely times. The first in-oh was almost taken back to the crib. The Rams immediately scored after, so might as well have been a defensive tutty. And then the second one cost Seattle a touchdown. And the Rams continued to build upon their lead. Everything was looking real good for Los Angeles. Up 2 scores late in this game. And then a funny thing happened to as we got to the finish. Seattle woke up, and they showed up and showed out in the latter stages of this game. Sam Darnold was making some big, clutch throws at the end of this game. Not just to JSN, but really to everybody. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet did their parts, especially Charbonnet on getting that 2-point conversion. And all of a sudden, this game was tied on an ESPN challenge 30 for 30. And then the Rams get the ball, and the field goal was missed. Both teams had opportunities to win this game in regulation. Neither could. We go to OT at 30-all in a game where the Rams probably should have locked up sometime about 20 minutes earlier than the game going to OT. But cool. 2 really good teams going to overtime? Bet. Let's get it. And the Rams got the ball first. And then Puka Nacua showed why he's been as great as he's been all year. 40-plus yard touchdown, 200-plus yard night for Puka, and the Rams are up by 7. All right, Sam Darnold, legacy drive. Gotta have it. Are you capable of getting it? The answer was yes. Darnold and company were right down the field and cooked on the entire last drive in overtime. JSN, who on the low was having a good game, not Puka good, but a good game, 90-some-odd yards, all in the second half. He didn't have any catches in the first half. That was wild. And catches the touchdown that makes it a 1-point game. Seattle did the right thing here. If you got the ball second and you need a touchdown, go for 2 if you get it. Absolutely go for 2. Do not give the ball back to Stafford. That was the right decision. Win it here, win it now. And that's exactly what Seattle did. The 2-point conversion was good. Seattle wins a game they had to have. A signature win for Sam Darnold and company. Despite Matt Stafford throwing for 400-plus yards, despite Puka's 2 bills, despite the Rams having 500 yards of offense, they lose. And it's a devastating loss in the sense of the Rams could have had the 1 seed by now, to be honest. All their losses are devastating. Look at them. The Eagles' loss was a block kick. The Niners' loss was a Kyren Williams fumble at the 1 and then a 4th down stop by the Niners. The Panthers' loss was a what in the world? How did you possibly lose that game with Matt Stafford self-destructing? And then obviously you got this one here. And if the Rams don't get the 1 seed, you see why. It is a devastating series of events. As for Seattle, they control their fate to the 1 seed. And they're going to have to earn it with 2 playoff caliber teams they're going to have to face in the next couple of weeks. But for now, Seattle with a signature win of the season. Rams, you can still get the 1 seed, but you're going to need a little bit of help in order to do so. Now, this Eagles-Commanders game was really wonky, I would say, for about a half. And in part because the Eagles kept tripping all over themselves. It was the Philly fumbling the kickoff and Washington getting 3 to start this. Sure, the Eagles went down the field with relative ease and scored to get the lead back. DeMonte Smith doing his part. And the Eagles held it down for the majority of the first half, except for a Commander score, because Terry McLaurin always seems to have a big player, too, against the Eagles. And then we get to the end of the half, and Jake Elliott decided to play the role of Missy Elliott, as he has been dubbed. We can't stand the rain, and he can't stand to make kicks, apparently. Kicks were missed. 3 of them. Only 2 of them counted on the scoreboard for Jake Elliott. All of them went to the left, like a Democrat. Let's talk about it. Anyway, we could get to the second half, and the Eagles decided, all right, that's enough of that, and we're just going to we're just going to destroy the Commanders with relative ease. And they did. Jalen Hurts making good throws. Dallas Goedert with a tutty. Saquon Barkley bouncing off of people like he is a pinball. 2, touchdown. Barkley, over 1,000 yards again. It was a very good performance in the second half of the Eagles. Again, I would say they've only played 2 legitimately complete games, both of which against bad teams. But you're supposed to beat a bad team, and they did. That 2-point conversion was a hybrid of it felt like disrespect towards the Commanders because they thought they could do it and bully him, and they actually were successful at it. And then disbelief in Jake Elliott because he kind of had the yips in this game and with those missed kicks. Anyway, no harm done here except for the fight that happened after the 2-point conversion was successful. The Eagles won relatively easily, clinching the division for the 2nd straight year, ending the most hilarious streak in the NFL of non-back-to-back division winners over the last 20 years or so, and also eliminating the Cowboys. So it was kind of a double-up success for the Eagles, getting 2 wins on Saturday effectively. For Washington, you're getting ever closer to a top 5 pick, and it's on the board that that's what happens, considering Jaden Daniels got shut down pretty much for the year, and Marcus Mariota got concussed during this game. Who knows? Maybe if Mariota plays the rest of this game, maybe they do beat the Eagles, instead of Josh Johnson, who once again got bullied by the Eagles. It happened again for the 2nd time in 4 years. And then we get another Game of the Year candidate, and the craziest comeback of the week, when you consider what happened with Seattle, it had a lot to live up to, and it actually exceeded it. So, first off, the Jordan Love hit. Yikes. The concussion is pretty devastating. We'll see if Love's able to play this week against Baltimore, a game that I will have to talk about absolutely tomorrow during Power Rankings. And it felt like even without Jordan Love, the Packers felt like the better team. For a lot of this game, they outplayed Chicago. Their defense came to play. They limited Caleb Williams. Yes, Roman Dunsey didn't play, but DJ Moore did play respectably well. Everything was looking good for Green Bay, I would say, and especially that really good throw by Malik Willis to Romeo Doubs to seemingly put the game out of reach. And it felt like, okay, all the Packers got to do is hold this down for a couple minutes, and they're good to go. Because the Bears kicked the field goal to get this within 1 score, and it was wasting the 2-minute warning as well. So the Bears burned that part. All Green Bay had to do was recover the onside kick. They did not recover the onside kick. Remember that name Romeo Doubs I just mentioned? Yeah, it turns out he kind of fumbled the ball away, and I don't know what the plan here was for Doubs to wait 10 yards and then go after the ball. He waited 10 yards and then goes after it, and then the ball is fumbled, and then Chicago recovers it, and now it's like, oh, Chicago's got a shot, because this ball's at midfield. Chicago gets the ball down the field, it gets to a 4th down play, and somehow a Bear is left very wide open. The nearest Packer towards him was at Wrigley Field. That's not quite near Soldier Field. That's not great. Tie game, we're going to OT in this game in the Shy, and Green Bay gets ball first here. And as it turns out, the Packers are able to move the ball decently until they fumble the snap on 4th and 1, and the Bears get the ball there. Yikes. They could have kicked the field goal, but instead they went for the 4th and 1, and the snap obviously fumbled. Chicago gets ball. Next score wins. Caleb Williams didn't waste too much more time. A couple plays later, it's a dot to DJ Moore. What a throw and a beautiful catch by Moore, burning Keyshawn Nixon, which is kind of ironic because Nixon made the play to win the game the first time they played. He gets burned on the play that loses Green Bay the game the second time. Not his fault. It was just a beautiful throw and catch by Caleb and DJ. A signature win for the Bears and the signature win of Caleb Williams' pro career thus far. A great performance by Chicago to steal this game from Green Bay, and all of a sudden, the Bears have kind of sort of an outside shot at the 1 seed, and they're going to have to earn it because they got a game coming up this week I will absolutely talk about, and might be the main event this week. I'll explain later, and definitely tomorrow. For Green Bay, it's a devastating loss, where they could have had the NFC North on lock in a chokehold with this tiebreaker on the Bears, and now they may be relegated to the 6th seed. Yikes. And Jordan Love is hurt. It's also the 2-piece combo there for Green Bay. There weren't many beatdowns in the 4 o'clock time slot, but there were a lot of them in the 1 o'clocks. So, kids, I'm going to need you guys to help me out with this one.
Stop He's already dead.
Thank you once again. And if we've learned anything in the NFL, sometimes you're the team administering a beatdown, and sometimes you're the team getting the beatdown administered to you. This has happened several times this year. The Dolphins, for example, were the team administered a beatdown by the Cleveland Browns, and then the next week administered one to the Falcons. Cincinnati took one from the Ravens last week, and this week went to Miami and administered one. But it wasn't an all-day beatdown. This was a really second half and especially third quarter beatdown that the Bengals administered. The Dolphins and Bengals went bar for a half, and Devon Achane and company were doing their thing, and everything was looking all right for Miami. Miami had scored and basically had a late drive to stop in the second quarter, I should say, where they could have had the lead going into halftime. Instead, Joe Burrow makes a great play and proves why Miami tried to offer 4 first-round picks to get him in 2020, and the Bengals go get the lead going into halftime. All right, cool. Miami gets ball to start the half. All right, Miami could do something with it. A terrible pass interference call leads to the next play being a Dulcich fumble, and then the Bengals really went to work from there on. Cincinnati scored almost immediately after said fumble, and then the next play was a turnover on downs. The next drive was an interception. The next drive after that was a turnover on downs, and these drives led to short fields for Cincinnati, all of them, and Chase Brown scoring on all of them. Natural hat trick in the third quarter, 3 tutties, 2 of them rushing, 1 receiving. It was an easy work touchdown day for Chase Brown. If you had him in fantasy, you probably did well. Same with Joe Burrow, who threw 4 touchdowns himself. Mike Gesicki did his ugly gritty, and the game was over pretty much at the start of the fourth quarter. 2 awful third quarters for the Dolphins this week, as they did nothing in Pittsburgh on Monday night, and then got pantsed basically in the third quarter this past Sunday. An easy win for Cincinnati after getting absolutely destroyed by the Ravens the week prior, and both these seasons are going to end disastrously, sure, but at least the Bengals got put up a 40-piece and nearly a 50-piece. They probably would have put up 50 had Joe Burrow stayed in the game, and they didn't take out their starters. Anyway, this was a pretty rough performance for Miami and the second straight one. This one at least looked okay in the throwbacks, but yeah, this was not great. And now we go down to the Bayou. So from LSU, Joe Burrow, and LSU with New Orleans and the Saints. And a merciless beating by New Orleans in the sense of their defense, actually doing their thing, and 8 sacks against the Jets and against Brady undercooked. It was not a great performance for him, and he really had no shot, to be honest. And New Orleans really proved that point nicely. Tyler Shough was very impressive, a 300-yard day against the Jets, and still the Jets don't have Innos. I'm not making this up. The Jets don't have an Inno yet this year, and they might not get one because they're facing Drake May and then eventually Josh Allen to end the season. You're probably not going to get Inno against either of those guys. Anyway, New Orleans with another really good performance lately as they're starting to get it in gear, and maybe Tyler Shough is especially. He's looked real good over the last month, and Chris Olave being healthy also helps the cause here. A very good performance by the Saints and Tyler Shough and company. And for the Jets, it's another miserable loss and another ugly one at that. This Jets team couldn't get towards the top of this draft fast enough. The problem is they got to jump the Raiders to probably get Fernando Mendoza. That may be their only hope, and even then, I'm not sure it's going to be a good hope for them. Dallas' season effectively ended after the Eagles lost. Sure, they were officially eliminated at that point, but it didn't mean that Dallas couldn't put up a fight. And it felt like for a quarter and a half, they kind of did, and keep it up with the Chargers. Unfortunately, Justin Herbert and Amari Hampton and Quentin Johnston had other plans. Ladd McConkey as well. They had other plans. All 4 of those guys ended up scoring touchdowns at various points during this game. Herbert had a nice long run, and Johnston had a really nice one-hand catch, by the way. I should also mention that. And this was a relatively easy second half for the Los Angeles Chargers as they were able to keep up with the Broncos, and they would get some help later on. I'll explain later. But a very good performance by the Chargers. And for Dallas, this is kind of like the swan song, if you will, of importance for their games. We'll see what they do with Christmas, obviously with the Commanders. But for the Chargers, this was a very good win and a necessary one to keep up in the AFC with the heavyweights in that conference. They may be a dangerous team as long as they can keep Herbert vertical and upright. We'll see if they can. Now, I expected the beatdown here. Going into last week, I would say Chiefs-Chargers. I would have said, okay, healthy Mahomes. He's covered up a lot of their weaknesses and their ill points. Yeah, they could probably beat up the Titans rather easily because a lot of teams do that. As it turns out, no Mahomes, and then eventually no Gardner Minshew because he tore his ACL as well in this game. Yikes. Get well soon, Gardner. We like watching Gardner Minshew play football. This turned into another bloodbath, but this time it was Tennessee administering the bloodbath. Another one of those, you take a beating one week and you give one beating the next type of situations. That's what happened to the Titans. Jeffrey Simmons scored a touchdown again, which is also quite nice. He's a really good player and it feels like his career is being wasted. Anyway, this was a really good performance by the Titans. Cam Ward actually did pretty well against his defense, and Tennessee with an actual nice win you could put on your yearbook, your yearly yearbook show that the teams seem to get every year. Good win for Tennessee, and because you don't get those. Every win is good for you. And they're a team that doesn't need the first overall pick to trade up for Mendoza. Just get a pick high enough where you can get one of those really good defensive ends. Ruben Bain, hopefully you are a Tennessee Titan. We will see if that is the case. Speaking of teams that drafted a defensive end high, Abdul Carter, who has played pretty well lately, to be honest. He had a very good game against the Vikings, stacking a really good game against the Commanders the week prior. Unfortunately, the Giants' offense isn't really fond of movement too much. The defense had to carry the Giants to any sort of respectability in this game. Javon Holland nearly went coast to coast once again at MetLife Stadium. This didn't count because of a penalty. It was rather unfortunate. But in any event, the Giants nearly won this game, and this really would have been a bad idea, and I think Giants fans would have super crashed out if it happened. Anyway, for Minnesota, they lose J.J. McCarthy, but they win the game, which I guess is okay. They were able to get this done by not completely crashing the car, which I don't recommend. Anyway, good win for the Vikings. Your defense did just enough against Jackson Dart and company to hold it down and to keep the Giants from winning. I guess that's the best thing I could say here. Justin Jefferson may be on milk cartons in Minneapolis right now, but at least the Vikings won this game. It's the best thing I could say about Minnesota at this point. Giants, your matching number is 2. 2 losses, and you have control of the NFL draft. Good luck. And now to the game of the day in the 1 o'clock set, because let's face it, this is the most important game of the 1 o'clock set here. Tampa Bay and Carolina, 2 teams I have no idea if I can trust you or not, played each other in Charlotte. And this game was as even and as close and as unpredictable as I think you would expect. Bryce Young looked pretty good. Baker Mayfield at times looked pretty solid. Mike Evans did catch the obligatory tutty against Carolina, because of course he did. And yet, Carolina kept up with him. This was a pretty respectable performance by both teams. And ultimately, it was the Panthers making the plays late. It was Tampa Bay somehow finding a way not to late. And it's a really devastating loss for a Bucs team that has crumbled hard down the stretch. If Tampa Bay doesn't make the playoffs and doesn't win the NFC South, they have themselves to blame because of their terrible division record. It is a really bad look to look this awful against all 3 teams in the division for that matter. You get one more chance against Carolina, but the real question will be, will that game even matter? Good win for the Panthers, a Panthers team that, again, I still have no idea what you are. But at the very least, you're 1 or 2 wins away from the 4 seed. Carolina, good luck. You're going to need it in your next game. I will talk about it tomorrow. There's always that one game that no one really pays attention to, but all of a sudden, oh, wait, this game was actually closer than expected. This was that game. Browns and the Bills. And Shedeur Sanders threw a couple of innos. Yes, one was not his fault. Quinshon Judkins, who had a good rookie year, unfortunately is hurt and out for the season now. That's rather unfortunate because he was really fun to watch. Anyway, this was a pretty good game for Cleveland. They actually kept up with Buffalo and made a good comeback despite how good James Cook was in this game. He scored twice. Josh Allen was relatively efficient. No, he did not get the sack record broken at his expense, even though Myles Garrett got a cheap one. Let's keep it a buck. I don't think Myles Garrett should have got the half sack that he was credited. That was a fluky one. That should have been Mason Graham and only Mason Graham on the sack. Anyway, Garrett is now a half sack away from tying TJ Watt and a full one for breaking the record. I may talk about this game tomorrow because, ironically, they're playing the Steelers. Anyway, when it comes to the Bills, all they had to do on defense was survive and advance and escape this game, and that's exactly what they did down the stretch. A good win for Buffalo to survive and keep up with New England. More on them later. As for Cleveland, you're that closer to firing Kevin Stefanski, which I think is for the best for both teams. I don't think Stefanski is a bad coach. I just think nothing about this is working in Cleveland. When it comes to roster construction, when it comes to his coaching style, none of it's currently working in Cleveland. I think they just need to separate and get away from each other. Ironically, I think Stefanski will probably be pretty good somewhere else, just not in Berea, Ohio. Buffalo is going to need a lot of help to win the East, but at the very least, the Bills are a dangerous wildcard team. Now to the 4 o'clock games, and these two dead birds in terms of the playoff standing are playing a respectable game. The sad thing is, to me, not as high scoring as I thought it would be. I thought both these teams are going to probably be in the 30s, and this would be like one of those 35-31 games due to their lack of defense. Instead, we didn't really get that. Sure, we got Bijan scoring. Okay, that's nice. We got a good day from Kyle Pitts, not the God mode game that he had last week. And we got an okay day for Kirk Cousins. Okay, fine. Trey McBride was solid, and we got a decent day from the Cardinals offense. It's just never hit the crescendo that I thought it was going to, and I think that's a little disappointing. Michael Wilson did make a spectacular catch, though. We got to talk about that. He might be their best wide receiver, which is real disappointing for Marvin Harrison. The fact that he hasn't taken that next step forward. He was pretty much locked down. Maybe this is a mix of A.J. Terrell doing his thing, or maybe it's just the fact that Marvin Harrison just doesn't have rapport with the Cardinals quarterbacks. Anyway, this was a very good performance for the Falcons, I guess, and they keep the Rams draft pick lower, which I think is the challenge I kind of set for them last week. Can you make sure that the Rams pick is not in the top 10? Good job so far in doing so. Keep doing it. As for Arizona, just keep losing. It's for the best. So you can maybe get a quarterback and or sign one in free agency after you inevitably release Kyler Murray. I think that's the route you guys have to go here. Houston, your defense is a problem. Houston, your offense has a problem. That's where I look at when it comes to this game here. Okay, sure, the Raiders have Max Crosby. I get it, fine. But it's just something missing here when it comes to the Texan offense. Woody Marks not playing obviously hurts because he was actually playing pretty well for the last few weeks of this season. But it still shouldn't be a 2-point game against the Raiders. Your defense being in God mode, well, that's expected because your defense is like that. And the pick six by Derek Stingley kind of helped set the tone here. But for Houston, I am very concerned that the offense is just way too inconsistent enough to make a run. Can you win a wildcard game? Yeah, you can. Absolutely. Especially if it's at home. I just don't know if I can trust you in the wrong road environment because of that offense. It's a little concerning to me. Stroud and Nico are fine, especially Nico Collins. Very good. But I don't know if I can truly trust you, especially if the defense in question that you're facing can actually get home and get to the quarterback. Houston, take your win and run and try to do better on offense somewhat, because that would be quite nice to see that. If you guys can, absolutely you guys can be that Super Bowl dark horse that everyone's going to pick you to be when the playoffs begin upon your entry. The real question is, where will Houston be seated? Will Houston be a wildcard team or will Houston be a division champion? Jacksonville is doing their part in making sure that they are one of the former scenario teams, as in the wildcard round. As the Jaguars' really white-hot run of the last month continues, and this was a loud, powerful statement that the Jaguars were able to make in Denver against the Broncos, who have been outstanding this year with winning 11 straight. Jacksonville went into their crib and did their thing, and this was very impressive. Penn State was the theme here because the first 2 touchdowns for Jacksonville were scored by Nittany Lions. Once by Parker Washington, who had a very good game, one by Brenton Strange, who's played really well lately. And despite a really good play by R.J. Harvey to score a touchdown in the second half, it was also the Clemson boys that did their thing, Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, who have cooked lately as well. This was a really good performance by Jacksonville to go into Denver and put up a 30-piece against a really good defense. Very, very impressive work by a Jacksonville team to take Denver's best punches from Bo Nix at times, from Courtland Sutton at times, and come back swinging, obviously, with those Nittany Lions and the Clemson boys. Ironically, the Pinstripe boy. Let's go PSU. Anyway, good win for Jacksonville as they keep control of the AFC South and keep it away from Houston. As long as Jacksonville wins out, they won't have to go to Houston. And Houston won't be able to host the playoff game, more than likely. From the AFC South to the AFC North. And I gotta say, for the Steelers, I've been very critical over the run defense especially, but the most expensive defense in the league looking as bad as they did for a lot of this season. And I think they've gone on a crusade to shut me up over the last few weeks. I salute you for that. I respect it. Yes, they got gashed and they got worked by the Bengals and by the Bills and by the Ravens at different points this year, but they've come back swinging. And the jobs they've done against Devon Achane and Jahmyr Gibbs, very impressive. Two of my three best fantasy players, the other one being Puka Nacua. Very impressive work over the last few weeks. And they clamped up the run game that was the Detroit Lions to incredible efficiency. Yes, Gibbs did score a receiving touchdown, sure, but they clamped up the run game that the Lions have, and they also ran for 2 bills themselves. Jaylen Warren was an absolute menace. 2 45-yard touchdowns on his part. Kenneth Gainwell was really impressive, and this spectacular catch that he made right before halftime. I can't believe he caught this ball. Definitely Antonio Freeman, he did what flows. That's what I got from this game. And the presence of mind for him to get up, a la Freeman, and score anyway, without Anzalone touching him, very impressive work on his part. Incredible stuff by Jaylen Warren and by the Steelers in general to end this first half as strongly as they did. And it felt like Pittsburgh should have blown them out, and instead they didn't. The Lions came back creeping into this game very impressively, although they got some help. Boswell missing a field goal was quite wild. The Steelers going pretty cold in the second half, also quite wild. The aforementioned Gibbs tutty happens, and the Lions are a possession away from tying the game. And actually, for that matter, a possession away from winning the game, because the Steelers had a safety. So it was a 5-point game for the Steelers. It was looking good for Detroit as they came down the field towards the end, and then they score. And then we get a pass interference call, and then the Lions have to restart and reset this whole thing. And, okay, just when it looks like they're going to be short of the end zone, they're not. They get a really creative lateral play from St. Brown, who laterals it to Goff. Goff dives into the end zone. The Lions won. Or did they? Another pass interference saves Pittsburgh's bacon. They're able to snatch the game away from Detroit with help of a terribly explained call by the officials, because he could have said, the ruling on the field is a touchdown. However, pass interference on the offense, since there is no time left on the clock, there's no penalty yardage to enforce, the game is over, there is no touchdown. Or he could have said there is no touchdown, the game is over. And the Steelers would escape that way. Either way, Pittsburgh survives in advance by the skin of their teeth not once but twice. And for the Lions season to effectively end this way, in terms of going to the playoffs, it's a really brutal way for it to go down like this. This loss for Detroit basically ensured and clinched spots for Chicago and San Francisco. 2 teams that have played really well, 2 teams that played this coming week. I'll talk about that game tomorrow, like I've mentioned. As for the Steelers, they're a game away from winning the AFC North because Baltimore, I can't trust you. New England, I don't trust you. And here's why. The Ravens look like the better team, a la Packers, when it came to, you lost your quarterback to an injury. In this case, it was Lamar Jackson and his back. And then it came to Derrick Henry basically putting the Ravens on his back. 100-plus yard day, 2 tutties, everything's looking good for Baltimore. New England making mistakes and kind of sort of proving that they're kind of still not about this life yet. Things were looking good for the Ravens. It looked like this game was on lock for Baltimore, up 2 scores late. And then the Ravens do what the Ravens do, which is find a way to spectacularly crumble when you have the opportunity to the least. Drake May and the Patriots found a way back in. Yes, May threw some great passes, one to Diggs, and obviously the touchdown to Williams later on in this game. Sure, cool, I can give y'all respect for that. It's the fact that Baltimore allowed this. That's my problem here. It felt like the Ravens lost this game more so than New England won it. Especially with the turnover by Flowers at the end. It felt like this was a Baltimore loss way more than the Patriots win. Anyway, take your win and run, New England, I guess. I still don't trust you. I really don't. I feel like with the wrong matchup, you're a one-and-done team in the playoffs. And for Baltimore's sake, I think this tenure of John Harbaugh being there has to be done. And I don't know what he was thinking when it came to not putting Derrick Henry back in the game up 2 scores. I will never understand why he did that. That was incredibly stupid. I don't care what the explanation was. Anyway, New England, take your kind of sort of undeserved win and run, because it felt like Baltimore had this game on lock and let it go once again. This team can't hold leads. Erod Devin Williams of the NFL. Let it be known. There was one more beatdown that happened, and I think I have to have the kids get involved in this. Kids, if you please.
Stop! He's already dead.
Thank you once again, and I guess it had to end at some point. between the Colts and Phillip Rivers and this kind of sort of really fun story that's gone on in the last couple of weeks. And to be fair, for 3 quarters, Rivers actually played respectably well. He wasn't too bad. He was finding his receivers. He was throwing some dotties. Yeah, that 45-year-old arm was showing up because there was no gas behind those deep balls. It was not great. But in any event, anything short and intermediate was looking respectable for Rivers. And unfortunately for him, Brock Purdy just happened to have the game of his life on the other side of the field. Purdy was an absolute menace. 5 tutties, absolutely cooking people, saving people in fantasy games. Well, some people. But in any event, this was a really good performance from Brock Purdy, basically the best of his career, I would say. Yes, some CMC got involved. Yes, George Kittle was a menace. He scored as well. Things were looking good. And then the Niners sealed this game just when it looked like, oh, the Colts got a shot here. The Niners get a pick 6 and say, blouses, this game is a wrap. And the Niners get this done. And we got to talk about the Colts for a second. The Colts started 7-1. Everything was looking good. They were the AFC 1 seed. They had the story of the year in Daniel Jones. They had the potential MVP in Jonathan Taylor. Over the last month and change, over the last 2 months basically, it has been absolutely brutal. The Colts' record is almost completely inverted. They're 1-6 since. And the bye week may have been the worst thing to happen to them. It's absolutely miserable. They pretty much since the Atlanta game, but they were 8-2. The Colts have not won since. They've lost 5 straight. It's been an absolute disaster class of the last month and change for Indianapolis. And the Colts are going to probably miss the playoffs most definitely. And now the real question is this: what do you even do? Do you keep Daniel Jones? Do you sign him back knowing he's going to miss a lot of the 2026 season? Do you draft a quarterback because you have no faith in Anthony Richardson? Do you roll Riley Leonard? Do you keep Shane Steichen? Do you keep Chris Ballard? What do you do if you are the Colts? Now that you've all but wasted a spectacular year for Jonathan Taylor and a lot of this really good team, and you don't have the draft picks, really, the high-end draft picks, to kind of help replenish this roster after trading for Sauce and Sauce immediately getting hurt. What do you even do now? I gotta know. It's going to be a really critical offseason for Indianapolis once it starts after Week 18. As for the Niners, their season may just be beginning. That may be the last road game San Francisco plays. As long as they keep winning, they don't have to go on the road ever again in the 2025/26 season. That is how impressive the Niners' run of form has been this year with all the injuries and all the adversity they've had to go through. If they keep winning, they don't have to play a road game ever again this year. Let it be known. I will talk about their game tomorrow, but before we get there, I got to talk about my record. For the second straight week, it's 9-7. For the third straight week, it's 9 wins. My overall record is 144, 87-1. Coming up tomorrow, Power Rankings. There will definitely be some movement guaranteed. There will be a new number 1. There will be a new number 2. Let's face it, the Broncos and Rams lost, so I got to do some movement. Seattle, obviously, has proved themselves worthy of being at the top of the Power Rankings. But who will follow them at number 2? Anyway, there's one thing that I already know, and it's going to be the team at 32. It's the same as last week. New York Giants, you're going to be the first stop of my next train of thought.